listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the #1 global business talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio. I'm Jason Wally Waldron, your host for today's show. I am joined here by Abby Donnelly. And Abby, a few short moments ago, we were just talking about this really interesting succession plan, and we got cut off by the break, and I'm really hoping that we can pick that back up because it was so interesting to me. You had a baby boomer who was saying to their millennial successor, hey, look, you've gone off the island, you've gone and gotten all this experience, 7 years somewhere else, you've come back, you've got this huge vision for the company, but here's the problem. I can afford to get out of the way of the company and you can afford to buy the company, or you can go and grow into this huge vision, but you've got to make a choice. How does this story end? Because I'm listening to this. First, I'm just really curious, but I'm also thinking like, I'm advocating for the owner because that's usually whose side we're on. And I'm like, you have to get the money now and let that kid figure it out. So that would be my position. Tell us how it went in real life.
Well, what first happened was there was a lot of, grimacing and groaning and grinding and, debates and arguments and yelling and screaming because, while they were both believing in the value of the big vision and strategic plan, they still had to face the reality that there just wasn't funding for both.
Right.
And so what they ended up doing was they talked through and they decided that one of the most valuable things that they could do is to go out and research either other methods for funding the company, like could they get some dollars, they pursued a lot of other funding options, and I won't go into the detail on all of those. And they also looked at whether they wanted to do a spinoff of the company, which still required funding, but they could access different kinds of funding if they spun off one company.
Okay.
And frankly, I can't tell you the end of the story because it's still happening.
Oh! Well, here's what I love.
So you're going to have to bring me back in a year.
There you go. Well, here's what's cool about, I love so much about this story because it's just real, right? I find in business that people forget the basics a lot of times, right? Benjamin Franklin said it great. Industry and frugality, right? Work your butt off, be a good steward of your resources. Put differently, one of my favorite authors, Thomas Sowell, talks about basic economics, and it's all about just the opportunity cost of things. And so I love this situation. This whole situation is what I would call just a bundle of good problems to have, right? It's like, because the owner is still going to find a way to step away. They're very clearly having the hard conversation with their successor, who is their kin. They are clearly not backing away from these ideas, but also they're managing it in a professional way. And you don't always see this in family businesses. So the fact that everybody is doing this with such a transparent and eyes wide open situation, but also being good stewards of what is available, both the constraints and the resources. It's a beautiful thing.
And I think if you ask either one of them on any given day whether they're working through this productively and professionally, they would, some days they would say absolutely, and some days they would say, no, they're driving me crazy.
Yep. So it sounds like a family business, right?
That's right.
What's interesting here, I know the work that I've done over the years, and when I've seen family businesses, is sometimes I've seen what looked like a failure on paper actually ended up being one of the most valuable deals that they ever did because they learned how to work together.
That's right.
And
that's a really good point.
So is there anything, so this one is still in process, and so we're gonna see a year from now how that's going. I'm very curious here as we sit here in the middle of 2023, but really, I mean, it feels like we're still just kicking off this decade, even though I know we're a good chunk into it now. But what kind of trends are you seeing in the marketplace? I know that I could throw trends your way all day long. Maybe I will here in a minute. But what are you seeing out there? What do you think is impactful? Where are things going? You're a statistical analysis person, so I really want to hear what your view is on this.
Yeah, I've got a couple of trends that I think are very interesting. One statistic that I got from the Exit Planning Institute, which you and I are both very familiar with, is that 75% of owners have profound regret after leaving their business.
Yep.
And what struck me about that is it's not just regret, it's profound regret. And it's, there are several reasons for this, but I think ultimately it's because they have not properly gotten ready for their exit. So I don't know that I call that a trend, but it is a statistic that I want to call to attention to owners, because it doesn't have to be that way.
I'm glad you start with that. The very first episode, actually, of this entire show, we started with something called the dire state of today's business owner. And that was one of the very first statistics that we talked about. And so it is a trend. Right now, it's a backwards-looking trend. However, as the Exit Planning Institute does a state of business owner readiness survey. I may have misspoken, but it's a state,
no, that's it.
Yeah, it's the state of the business owner, and it's an exit readiness survey. And they pop around to different states, and they've been doing this for over a decade now, and the numbers hold up almost perfectly. And so I think that's a perfect trend to start with, because it's important for folks to realize, first of all, that if you aren't preparing for your exit now, the odds are literally that you will experience profound regret when the exit happens. And notice I don't say if the exit happens. I said when the exit happens. It might be when you die at your desk, right? However, it's going to happen. And so I do think it's important to just note that there are certain things that keep holding up. There's another one, and I know that this intersects with some of your work. This was the one that actually struck me. I think the kids these days would call it hit me in the feels. But what happened was they were in Colorado this year, the Exit Planning Institute, doing the State of Business Owner Ready survey. Well, I guess it was last year now, 2022. And 72% of people who took the survey, they wake up without a sense of purpose in their life.
It's really sad. And that's why, the work I do on the next chapter is so important, because there are some data out there that says that the rate of obesity, drug abuse, alcoholism, and depression skyrockets within the first 6 to 12 months. For owners after they leave their business. Now, after that time, most of them kind of get into some new groove. They may not get out of some of the patterns and habits that they've started in that window of time, though. But even if they move through it after a year, why on earth would we want to go into something so profoundly difficult when we can do some planning on the front end, working through what that rewarding and meaningful next chapter and purpose will look like, and then move into it with excitement and delight about what we can make that next chapter of our life be.
That sounds so much better. I'm always disturbed by the statistics of, and anecdotally, it's always that guy who worked every single day of his life, retired, and then is dead 6 months later, right? Everybody's heard that story. Everybody's had a brother-in-law who had that, everybody has seen that. And that bothers me. And so from your perspective, Abby, what is there an average age that someone starts to engage with your work and engage with you, or is it all over the place? Tell us about that from more of the personal side of these business owners.
So that's a great segue into a trend. I mean, it's really fascinating to me, because I've worked with clients that are well into their 70s, maybe even one or two in their 80s. I usually ask age. But what's been really fascinating is over the last 5 years or so, there have been many more folks that are Gen Xers, like you described for yourself, that are in their late 40s or 50s, that are looking at a next chapter. And they're saying, you know what, I still have a lot more I want to do before I'm ready to retire. And, in my book, my next book, I say that retirement is outdated. It's all about building a portfolio life and really figuring out what are the components that you want to build in.
So what is a portfolio life? That's fascinating.
Yeah. And so a portfolio life is where you're you're incorporating into your life the things that are meaningful and rewarding at the level at which it's sustainable for you and it gives you purpose and meaning. And so I have many owners that I work with that after they ramp down from their business instead of exit their business.
Oh, cool.
And as long as there's a clear boundaries around the role that they're going to play in the business and there's agreement with their successor, that can work out so well. They also may want to start another business or work for pay, whether they need the money or not. Most don't, but they still want to be valued for what they do, and maybe money is a form of feeling valued. But it's incorporating all of those things, because if you ask a room full of people, and I've done this, probably 100 times, ask a room full of people, what do most owners say that they're going to do when they exit their business? People get it right every time. They say three things. They say first, well, it's not necessarily in this order, but they say, I'm going to play a lot more golf. Sometimes it's tennis. I'm going to travel a lot more, and I'm going to spend more time with family.
Yeah.
But within 6 months, if that even lasts 6 months, they're bored. You can only play so much golf. Most people can't do it enough, and it's not meaningful enough. It doesn't have enough purpose.
Well, that's really fascinating. So I really appreciate you being here today, sharing with us these trends. I love the idea of a portfolio life. It's really in alignment. One of the ways that we set people up for this, we call it creating a passive income stream with the business you already own. And so to your point, that's a great idea. And
love that.
And I love the idea of helping people navigate through the awkward middle between getting out of their business and then moving on with the rest of their life, even if it involves a lot of golf. And Abby, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Throw out your website real quick, and then and we'll be all set for today. Can you just tell people where they can find more about you and your work?
Sure. They can visit my website. It's www.leadershiplegacygroup.com.
Awesome. Be sure to check out Abby if you like what you heard here today. Her books are on your favorite platform, rhymes with Amazon. And we'll be back with you on Exitology next week. Take care.